Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers. Seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
It's list time. We have a list.
Yay!
It's been a while. You sent me an article from the Harvard Business Review.
Yeah, I'm kind of on a roll with those lately. They've got some great articles coming out.
Yeah, they do such a good job.
I know it.
If anyone wants to keep up on business culture stuff and leadership, it's a super good resource.
I love it.
So this one is 5 terms to help you manage your mental health.
Ah.
That seems right up our alley.
Yeah. Well, we'll decide after. And I would just like to say that I'm at an disadvantage because I sent you the article, but I didn't actually read it all.
Yeah, or remember any of it. So I've got the 5 terms to help manage your mental health in front of me.
Oh, good. Okay.
And you can't see them.
Right. And I feel like we're in a game show, like the 1970s, totally. Like Pyramid or anything else like that.
Yeah.
Except we just need Betty White.
This will be like you on the spot answering these things.
That is not true. That's not fair.
I don't think we've ever done one of these like lists where you have the list and you ask me.
Yeah, once we did.
Once?
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember what it was, though. But I did feel a real sense of power, by the way. There's I kind of felt like Dr. Evil. Like I had all the answers. $1 million.
So let's think about this a little bit. Terms to help manage your mental health. Like, what do you think that would entail?
Yeah.
Like,
don't you think this is a good question? Like, I have no idea what this article says, but when you say terms to manage your mental health, the first thing I start thinking about is how do we talk about our mental health? How do we talk about it with other people? And especially right now, after 2 years of a pandemic, talking about mental health is way more important than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of being able to talk about it. And I'm hoping what this article is doing is giving us some powerful language to use to help everyone be on the same page of something.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed, especially in like a business context, is giving people the language to have a shared understanding about what we're talking about.
Oh, that's so good.
Especially around mental health, because again, it's not one of those topics where, maybe some people do, but like generally it's not like you bounce into work and then you're just like, boom, here's everything going on with my mental health.
Right. No,
it's
not at
even
all.
worse with remote work. Unless your team is really been purposeful and skilled in a remote work environment, I'd say my observation for the most part is that it creates a very isolating environment for a lot of people, which kind of makes it harder to talk about your mental health with your coworkers.
And you and I have been talking a lot about not even using the phrase mental health, but using the phrase mental wellness, because it really is about your mental wellness. It's about keeping yourself in a good space, recognizing when you start to slip down to a lower spot and having the language to speak about it in a way that other people can be in partnership with you and not feel afraid of you or afraid of the topic and feel like they're not equipped in the topic. And yeah, you're right, especially the remote work. It's like it makes it harder and harder all the time.
Yep. So let's dive into 5 terms.
Okay.
And see where this leads us.
Okay.
Okay. The first one, and I'm going to butcher some of the phrases here.
Oh, okay, fine.
Because I can't speak half the time. So the first one, catastrophizing.
Oh.
So
they're starting with that?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So the definition is when we overestimate the consequences of our worst fears.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You see this all the time. Like, I'm sure in your coaching, it's basically this
all
the time.
Yeah. So the way that this article is written, are they just like giving us terms to use, or are they giving us standard approaches to how people are in mental health that perhaps are not helpful? Because this first one feels like using that word to me is kind of would draw a lot of defense from people.
Right. So here's how you would use that, right?
Yeah.
Like when starting a big project, I find myself catastrophizing.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it.
What if I mess this up?
Oh, got it.
What's like, right? You're kind of like going to the worst possible scenario right away.
Right.
Which I would say when you feel like the world is in a pandemic and everything is falling apart.
Yeah.
And your energy is like
compromised.
It would be really easy to apply that to everything else. Like everything else is catastrophic.
Yeah. You find yourself doing
even little things at work, right?
Yeah. So like even the littlest of things will set you off. Totally common. And I think that, in this whole grand scheme of catastrophizing things, that is like the picture of anxiety because it is picturing something in advance of it happening. So already you're in a position of no control, and picturing that it's not only going to be terrible, but it's going to be the worst, right? And if you're already feeling exhausted and you're feeling like it's really hard for you to get dressed and to not feel sad because everything is challenging in the moment, boy, thinking about something like that could just throw you off the cliff. Yeah.
So if you're doing that to, things at work, right? If you're making if you're really going to the worst possible scenario every single time, that's really going to affect. I mean, it's going to affect your colleagues.
Yep.
It's going to probably affect the output of your work.
Yeah.
And so I've actually come across this, like at our company.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think we all have. We all have.
And I'll just start with like a line of questioning, like, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen? Right? If this project goes sideways, what's the very worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
And then someone articulates it. I was like, well, if that happens, what do we do?
Yeah.
And then
that's actually
and then just kind of like lean into it, right?
Yep. That's actually a coaching and therapy tactic is to unpack the very worst case scenario to see if it is really real and can you live with it.
Yeah.
And I think most importantly, when you're catastrophizing something, it's all being done in your head. Most of the time, it's not because you're talking about it in that kind of way. So if you can get yourself to the place where you're actually speaking the words and describing how you're feeling, then I think it becomes like, oh, that actually doesn't sound quite right.
Right.
Now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
that's an interesting
we've
one.
referred to that in the past as a paper tiger.
Yes, totally.
Right? It looks scary, but you
can just stick your finger right through it.
Yep. And I agree. Verbalizing the fear is a really great way of getting through it.
Dismantling it. What if you see other people that you know and care about doing that? Like you start saying asking questions. This is kind of a little more delicate, right? Because to them, they may not even recognize that they're doing that. And boy, there's nothing worse than someone coming and telling you what to do or what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about how to be in partnership with someone that you sense is doing that. And, if that's the case and you know somebody who's catastrophizing events, maybe once, maybe they do all the time. One of the things that I have done is I have said, boy, I recognize the feeling of this. I recognize how it feels to catastrophize. I have done that so many times in my life. And it made me feel so anxious. It made me feel so out of control. And it made me fearful about something that I had nothing, it hadn't happened or anything, but it sure felt real.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about it from your own perspective, I think is very helpful in sort of distracting or dissuading the person from staying in that really deep place of, so just.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach.
Yeah.
I personally have a hard time being around that kind of thinking. Now, like there's some people that are always thinking about the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
What's our plan B? What could go wrong?
And they think it's good to do that. And like sometimes they really believe that that's the best.
That's their value, right? Mm-hmm. And there is value in that. So you sometimes just have to recognize that's maybe even that person's job function is to actually figure out what could go wrong. Because for a lot of jobs, that is part of the job.
Yeah, right. All
right, let's move on.
Okay. Next one.
Ooh, this is interesting. I don't know what this means. Toxic positivity.
Oh.
Melissa and I are huge self-awareness nerds. We've been working on this stuff for a really long time, and we love talking about it and sharing it with all of you. We've actually brought all of the stuff we've made into an online course, and we think it's really great. The course starts by learning about yourself and how your mind-body connection works. It dives into your thoughts and feelings, and then helps you learn how to become your true, authentic self. Start your journey today. Head to theselfawarenessjourney.com to learn more and sign up. So the definition is the assumption that despite a person's emotional pain and turmoil, they should only have a positive mindset.
That is a really good call out because that's the falseness.
Because everything's okay. You'll get through it. It's great.
I feel like this totally encapsulates the 1950s. Like if you think about any of the advertisements, any of the television programs, Leave It to Beaver, all of these Pollyanna, under the covers, there's maybe terrible things going on, but no one needs, it's all okay. Everything is perfect. It's that surface. Everything's surface.
White picket fences, perfect manicured yards.
Yep. I was, there was a show on Netflix about the Ricardos, and I didn't love the show that much, but there was an interesting component about that, like in the stage of the 50s and the 60s where Lucy was pregnant with their child for realsies. And Lucy and Desi wanted to portray a couple on the television in which she was pregnant. And they wouldn't let her. There was a huge debacle, and the station was not going to allow them to air the show because you just didn't show that kind of realism on television. So I think we've come a long way in terms of surface versus real, but I think we're still stuck in a lot of ways in terms of make everything look good. Don't tell anybody that you're suffering. Don't tell anybody that you don't feel secure or that you feel sad, because that could be bad. And I think that is toxic to have to go to that extreme.
Yeah, it masks what is real, right? And we talk about in the self-awareness journey, we talk about being your authentic self and your actor self. And really being falsely positive is the actor self. Like you're trying to protect yourself in some way. You're trying to look a certain way. So many people will try to look like, oh no, everything's totally fine. Everything's put together. No problems in my life, right? Meanwhile, it could be a complete disaster.
And you feel terrible inside. And when you're around people like that, you can feel that discord, right? You can totally feel the discord of someone who's having a very challenging time but trying to fake it. And that's so hard to be with them like that.
There's even really personally, Amber and I are pretty real. We have no problems sort of sharing our highs, sharing our lows, being open, that stuff. Years ago, we had some friends, and it was just kind of everything's positive, right? They would never really, especially in public, let that image down. And we've grown apart, right? Because it's we can't be around this constant false positive. Because it's not us, and it just does not. It's not real, and you can't really. To me, you can't maintain sort of long-term, deep authentic relationships with that kind of false positivity.
Because really the long-term effect is You have to choose to be like them and falsely just go along with the gag, or you have to depart from that, which isn't popular, if that's the case. Yeah. So I think it is really challenging when we see people that are like that. But, if you want to authentically be with that person and maybe help them so that it isn't something that is a toxic piece in their life or proliferates, I think it is about saying, I know you're really working hard to be positive, and I totally get that. And I'm so sorry you're having a hard time. I think cutting to that piece in support and love is not something we think about doing. We think we have to fake it with them, or we have to just bolt and get out because we're uncomfortable. But I think there's also something about being with someone. I mean, remember when we were having a conversation with our good friend a couple weeks ago, and he was having a different experience in that conversation than you and I were. And it was like we had a choice to either exit out of that discussion or to just be with him in his place. And I was going to use a judgmental word instead of place, even. Right there, I started to do it. But it's like there's lots of opportunities when we're with people, when we're sensing that they're being overly positive, and giving them grace, recognizing like they are in a hell of a lot of pain if they feel like they have to push that out so much. And being objective about that and supporting them with authenticity is probably the best thing that you can do. Yeah,
I agree with you. There's when you see someone maybe acting like that, you tend to label it as like, oh, they're acting really fake.
Yeah,
right?
They're totally fake.
But to me, it's... at that point, to me, it turns to almost like, oh, I'm really sorry that they feel like they have to act that way.
Right, exactly. And there must be really something going on in their lives. Their mental wellness must have taken a huge chink somewhere, and they're having a really hard time. So I think that's a really awesome approach to that.
All right, next up.
Yeah.
Emotional labeling. So
wait, I hope we didn't already label everything in the last two pieces where now we're going to have to undo everything that we just said.
So that's the process of identifying and naming your feelings, especially the difficult ones, as specifically as possible.
Oh, I love that.
So this is hard.
Yeah, I love that.
For men.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say introverts.
That could apply too, but...
And then you said men, which is hilarious. And then what if you were to say introverted men? Game over. Look at the time. Let's quit this pod. You're right. You're so right.
Well...
You know what I think is awesome as a resource for this as we're talking about it? Well, for one thing, I love this idea.
One of those charts that you get your children that tells you it has like the emotion
with stickers
on it, like happy face, sad face, and you point to it. No. Is it that?
No. Although maybe. Hey, maybe. Depends on what the stickers are. Are they the smiley face stickers or no?
Yeah, I should get one here at work.
Yeah, just a straight mouth sticker. Like
point to the feeling you're having about the P&L statement. Okay.
You could probably speed up meetings like dramatically if you started using. Everybody gets their own pointer. Don't share because we're in the period of trying to keep social distancing. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
So let's talk about emotional labeling, like labeling your emotions, like, and being specific about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think one of the things society does, especially with mental health, is they use blanket statements that everybody knows are blanket statements, that there's something under the blanket, and don't talk about it. Grief. You know, we recently had a great podcast
about grief.
Yep. And so if people are grieving because they've lost someone, right? Oh, well, they lost someone. They're just, they're having a tough time. Like, we use these blanket phrases because we're so uncomfortable about labeling what it specifically is. And yet, you know what? By labeling it specifically what it is, it's so much easier. It's so much easier. And I think the other thing is that there's a big idea that you can't be vulnerable. So like using words to say, I feel really sad right now.
Yeah.
Is like awkward. But if you say, I am really mad right now. Oh yeah, well, I get that, man. I'm mad too. Everybody's mad, you know. Yeah. Right? So even certain words elicit a vulnerable feeling, but they're truth. Mm-hmm. And they're so much easier when you can do it that way. So the more specific that you can get.
Yeah, well,
it's helpful.
There's a big, I was kind of joking about the man comment, but there is a big social stigma around sharing your feelings and labeling them.
Yep.
The phrase I hate most is when someone's like, "Oh, how's it going?" And it's just like, "Fine." Wish we could like banish that from our lexicon because like
fine, everything's fine.
Fine. Maybe that's like a Midwest thing. I don't know.
It's like, you're so weird, man. Why can't you say not fine? I mean, it's just like my friend Fiona, and I've said this on pods before. It's like when someone asks you how you are, they don't actually want to know.
Right.
She says that. It's so funny. Right.
But really thinking about, like you're saying, like, what are you actually feeling?
Right.
It's
hard to figure that out.
Yeah. It is hard to, you have to sit with it for a little bit and not, not distract yourself, not, not like go to these generic statements like you're saying. Like really think about that question and answer it in an honest way.
That's the self-awareness piece. That's the self-awareness piece. But I think that when you do and you can just be authentic, then it's easier to be authentic back, and
kind of, and looping back to it's false positivity kind of dovetails into it. It's like, like if you can really tell somebody specifically what you're feeling, like like you said, it's more authentic. It creates a stronger bond and relationship with that person.
Right.
It shows that you have the courage to be vulnerable and actually tell someone how you are actually thinking.
Right.
And there is a anxiety that that will be bad, that like someone will use that against you. That has never been my experience. Every time I've been like truthful with how I'm feeling, it turns into a positive experience.
Oh, I
way
totally
more
agree.
Positive than any other way.
Yep. And I think if you're really suffering from an episode or a period of time when you're not feeling mentally well, it's even harder to identify what your true feeling is, because you feel these global descriptions such as I'm exhausted, I'm depressed, everything feels heavy, everything feels hard. And none of those are real specific examples. They're getting there. But I think that's what happens. And then we start to feel so bad about ourselves that we just numb ourselves out or shut ourselves off or turn down to the point where we just don't even want to interact with anybody else.
Yeah.
And to me, really that's where we're talking about with people's mental wellness today. There are far more people struggling with mental wellness today than ever before, than even 3 months ago, than even 1 month ago. There's far more, and it's prolifically growing. And we as a country are not really equipped to have the language or the tools to be with someone as they sort through how they're feeling. And I think we're trying desperately, and we're running to catch up.
Yeah. Yep.
But I like this idea of being as specific as possible, because it doesn't require anything for someone else to just be in grace and support without having to have the answers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the big thing. It's like, remember when we were talking to Mary on that podcast, she's like, grieving is not something that you get over. It's not something that's broken and can be fixed. And so just being with her in that time is the value.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we got to keep moving.
Okay.
That's good
this
stuff.
This pod's going to be like 3 hours long.
That's good stuff.
Okay.
All right, this next one's funny. Emo diversity.
I have no idea what that means.
The ability to experience a diverse range of emotions in equal measure.
Oh.
That last little bit, in equal measure, I think is the important part.
Wow. I don't have a lot to say in this one. This is a hard one.
Well, so I would say that maybe let's say, I'm trying to think of an example, like something really great happened.
Yeah.
You're really excited, right?
Yeah.
So you get on a real high about it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yes, awesome. You're
Oh,
cheering,
yeah.
right?
Okay, I'm getting
The
there.
opposite side of that would be that same amount of energy,
Yep.
but being sad,
Right.
right? So again, this is just letting yourself feel like the highest highs and the lowest lows. Like
Oh, yeah. Let it roll.
let the tide come in and out. Right?
I can think of a couple of examples,
and
actually.
don't try to stop. Don't try to
falsify one side.
Falsify the good or the bad.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
let them go in their full cycle.
Yeah, like a really case in point could be like in a work environment, if you get a huge raise and a huge new promotion, like that could be so exciting and so neat. And then you also have to leave all of your current relationships because you have to relocate for this job and everything is all, so you would feel really, really sad about all the things that you were leaving behind, and yet you'd still have this great joy about what you would be walking into. Yeah. Don't you think it would be normal to minimize that sad part though? Like in that situation, you'd be like, oh, it'll be fine. I can still be in touch with those. I can
that word again, fine.
You're gonna get self-awareness T-shirts that just say
"Not fine"
in cracked up letters. Fine.
Well, I say this all the time.
Yeah.
Mixed emotions.
Yeah.
Like this event, someone will ask me about something. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally have mixed emotions.
Yeah, that's
super happy, super sad, both at the same time, simultaneously.
Yeah.
I like them both. Right.
Yeah, that's really good. I don't feel like I'm very healthy in that way because it feels like I have to choose one way or the other. I really do. It's like that's hard for me to just objectively accept. Yeah. So that's interesting. So they're suggesting for mental health that it really is a good idea for you to be able to have both.
Yeah, to just experience the range.
Right. And
simultaneously. Not even simultaneously. I'd say that specifically is something I'm particularly conscious about.
Yeah.
Is there's so many situations where you do have positive and negative together.
Yeah.
And just being aware that you currently have mixed emotions.
Got it. Yes. Amen.
So.
Okay.
But yeah, to me, it's just like this. What it's talking about is just like riding the wave. We talk about that. It's like there's ups and there's downs, and and it's just saying lean into the ups and lean into the downs,
and observe them and don't judge them. Like just be more observational about your feelings.
Part of it.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, last one: emotional acknowledgement. The act of verbally recognizing someone else's feelings. You actually even already talked about this.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. And you know what? I think if anybody walked away from this podcast trying to decide what they were going to do with it, right here is a really, really good one. Because it gives you an opportunity to observe emotion. Don't judge. This isn't about judging and fixing or calling people out for something that's your advantage and not theirs. It's not about that. But it's like, boy, it's really, really helpful if we can come alongside of someone and observe that they're in pain and be with them. Not fix it, but label it. Say, it seems like you're really sad today. I'm sorry you're having a hard time. Do you want to talk about it? If you do, I'm happy to listen.
So part of that's like an emotional intelligence to actually be able to recognize when someone is in that state. Right. And then.
Yeah, because you know what most people do? They take it personally. They take it personally. Yeah. Oh, that guy's acting kind of sad. Yeah. He must be mad about something. I bet he's mad or he's thinking this from last time we talked and has nothing to do with it.
How many times have you been maybe at work mad about nothing about something that has nothing to do with work, and then everyone's like, oh, Melissa's probably irritated about the reports from this week. Right?
Totally.
You're like,
totally.
No, the squirrel keeps eating my bird seed. I don't know what you get mad about.
I think that's really funny that you say that because as you're talking, over your shoulder is a coffee bag and there's a squirrel on it hanging on the wall.
Also, recognizing someone's feelings and actually calling that out might not be met with such a openness, right?
Absolutely, I agree.
If I come up to a coworker that I don't interact with very well and say, "Oh wow, you seem really mad today," to me, it feels like,
Right.
who knows what I'm going to get? Some people might be like, really
Yeah.
appreciate that I recognize that. And some people might be like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
true.
that's a very delicate,
You're right.
that's a very delicate spot, but I think but it is worth practicing, observing. The thing you can start right now is just observe, like even on a Zoom call, pop in your Zoom call, look at all of the faces and all the little
Body
boxes
language
and just see if you can place an emotion word onto everybody.
Yeah. Because and what you're talking about is all internal. You could even be with someone, notice that they're acting or feeling a certain way, not ask them about it, but just be available for them in a different way. Be more open. Use your own example, and just say, "Oh, I've just had kind of a tough day," or "I feel tired today," or entering into the conversation a little more deeply than you normally would, as opposed to, "How are you?" Like,
right. Yep.
and going first.
A lot of times when we're working on teams,
Yeah.
a lot of the people in the teams will have a similar feeling,
Yes.
right? If we're working on a big project together. So
Yeah.
like you said, going first, always a good move.
Right.
So
Good list.
Well, there you go. 5 terms to help you manage your mental health.
I love it.
It's pretty good.
It's good.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.